Welcome, Jamie.
Hello.
And today we're going to be speaking about remote learning. As we all know, we have some remote learnings coming up. And Jamie is going to share strategies for parents and students to have successful remote learning days. So thank you, Jamie, for joining us today.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Well, I'm excited. So first of all, let's talk about remote learning. What is remote learning?
So remote learning is anytime a student is off-site, not at the school building, and they're completing work at home with the support of their teachers. And usually it's facilitated through a Chromebook, or if they are kinder through second grade, an iPad.
Okay. So when doing remote learning, is there certain platforms that students have to use in order to complete classwork? Or is it, because I know some of them use Google Classroom, so what platforms do they utilize?
So for our students who are attending in person, some portion of their school week, and then they're moved to remote. For kinder through second, they are using Seesaw. And then for third through 12th, they're using Google Classroom. And so what's nice is they have that experience while they're at school, and they're very familiar. My own first grader is very familiar with how Seesaw works. And then when he brings his iPad home for a remote learning day, he knows how to utilize that platform.
Okay, that's excellent. So, and clarifying, what is the difference between remote learning, virtual, and blended? So you touched a little bit on blended. So that's when students go to school a few days a week and then remote learning on the other days. So what's the difference between remote and virtual?
So virtual students are those students who have chosen to be fully online and learning connected through Don Tyson School of Innovation this year. And so we have that for K-12, that some families have just chosen for their children to be fully virtual. So those programs and platforms look a little bit different. For example, in the high school, they use Schoology and Edgenuity, and a lot of different learning programs facilitated through Don Tyson School of Innovation.
Okay, so the advantages from the information that you're giving us is that most of our students are very familiar already with these platforms. So whenever these remote learning days come up, they know how to access the platform where they need to do their work. They know how to use it because it's something that they use throughout the school day.
Yes, and so for a lot of times, the trick for students is to remember that these days are similar to what you've already been experiencing at school, but that's been the benefit as well.
Right. So with remote learning, is there a schedule? Let's say, for example, we know school starts at 7:45 elementary. Is that what time the students who are doing remote learning have to log in and be logged in until 3 o'clock, which is the end of the school day? Or how does that work?
It's actually a lot more flexible. Mm-hmm. And so just that it needs to work for your family. And so if 7:45 elementary, if that's when your students are ready, then the platform will be ready so that your student can stay on that schedule. But then if your family needs some flexibility and can perhaps complete the work later that day, then that is fine as well. So there is some flexibility.
Okay. So how would that reflect as far as attendance?
So as long as they're completing their work, and that's another main piece, especially for the parents to learn, is sometimes your student may not remember to click turn in within Google Classroom, or on Seesaw, it will say add response, and then they have to click, they are prompted to actually turn something in. And so your teacher is really able to see how much you are completing. And so the remote learning attendance is based on your students' participation. There are other computer programs like Lexia, which is a literacy computer program, and your child has to have so many minutes within those particular programs. I know that those are utilized primarily in our elementary schools.
Okay, so that's good to know. So turning in the work is the equivalent. That's how we're taking attendance. So that's important for parents to know.
Yes.
So we're getting started for remote learning. So how can parents help their students prepare for these remote learning days?
So as a parent, when they are remote, when they're home doing their schoolwork, just coming alongside them and learning the different platforms and having conversations with your student. Show me what you're doing. Show me Google Classroom. Show me Seesaw. How does this work exactly? Because again, your student really should understand that piece. And then if they don't, then as a parent, know that you can always communicate, or your child can communicate with their teacher. So throughout the remote learning day, all of our teachers are available to respond to any questions. So generally the best way is through email, but your teacher may communicate through an app like Remind or Talking Points. And so just knowing that you can always reach out
to the teachers. Perfect.
To the teachers, yes.
So in the cases, so most of the classwork is done online through, the online platforms. What about our parents or families who do not have internet access? How does that look for them?
So we want our families to stay connected and to have internet access. So we want for families to know that they can reach out directly to their school if they need help securing internet access. So our schools have different programs available to help support any family that does not have internet access. I think during the pandemic, we have really learned the importance of maintaining connection and how we can still stay connected, although apart physically. And luckily, we have that one-to-one technology with Chromebooks and iPads. So again, simply reaching out and saying, we need some assistance with internet. The schools do want to support you.
Perfect. Excellent. So we moved on now. So tips for parents. How can parents create an effective learning environment at home for their kiddos?
So I'm a parent myself. So speaking from experience, creating a plan or schedule together, you can post that plan, even if it's just on a piece of paper, and make the plan out together. I recommend doing that the night before, so that then we wake up and we know that this is a school day, which feels different than a weekend. We also want to think about a great workspace for your child, and perhaps that's the kitchen table, just having a spot where they can focus, and turning off distractions is a big piece. So we should make sure that we turn off any television, any extra devices. Should also just not be around. And then as parents, reminding your student to make sure that their device is charged. That is a learning curve for your students, especially with keeping up with their device and their charger. So you may want to think about always keeping that in their backpack, and then charging it the night before. And as parents, we also need to ensure that students are only using their devices for school purposes. And so we want to make sure that they're not on YouTube or playing video games. We really should be able to think of the school computer as only for schoolwork. And that helps your student as well to not be distracted. And as your students work, we as parents want to stay connected. And so as much as possible, if you can connect with your child as they complete their work and help them check off their work as they go. They may have a list of 10 different tasks that they need to complete or 10 different lessons. And so just giving them, okay, can we do 3 before lunch? And then we could break this up throughout the day. So creating that plan together really does help. And then maintaining connection and communicating with them.
And that's so important, especially because they're used to this routine when they're in school and they have social breaks. I mean, they're with their classmates, and especially if they're secondary, they have bells that kind of break that day, ends the class. And at home, they don't have that. So it's very important for them to be able to break up those assignments so it doesn't feel so overwhelming to them, because that sounds very overwhelming, and it can be if there's no plan or structure. So that's a really great suggestion. And also, I might add, making sure that your device is connected to your home internet. I've experienced this trying to work remotely from home and not being able to connect or can't figure out how to connect it to the internet. So that would be something, to look into before remote learning days, to make sure that you're connected to the internet so that's not a delay.
That's a great tip.
Yes. Well, that's amazing. So now let's talk about tips for students. What strategies can we share with our students to ensure that they successfully do their schoolwork?
So, and I've experienced this with my own nephews who are my neighbors, as well as my own 3 children. So the more that they can recognize that they've got the strategies from school that then translate to home. And so just like we've already talked about, that what happened at school with Google Classroom or Seesaw, that's going to happen as well here at home. And then, do they have a plan of what to do if they are confused? Do they know how to communicate with their teacher? Is there an older sibling that perhaps understands the math when they get frustrated, and can help simplify that? And asking your teacher for help, but then also, is there a classmate that they could connect with? Maybe they FaceTime with a classmate to do some of the work. If your students are very social, then they may need to find times to connect. Again, physically distant, but then they can use technology to connect and complete their lessons together. It's a great way for us to maintain connection. And the main thing, and also just like for students to commit to the work, like this is a school day, and so I still have to complete my lessons and make sure that I turn it in when I'm finished.
Very important. And that leads us to another very important question as far as mental health, because our students, especially the ones who are very socially active and need that social interaction, being home, staying home can affect them in different ways. So mental health is very important. Do you have any resource or any strategies as far as what as parents or maybe older students can do for themselves, for their mental health? And, that may include physical activity. That's also very important.
Yes. And I think that mental health and physical activity, all of these pieces, it makes us think about the habits that we have every single day. What do we wake up? How do we, if you are home remote, do you get dressed? Do you eat breakfast first? And then can you start in on your schoolwork? Scheduling screen breaks. So I know that I've got to be connected perhaps for these 2 hours, but then I can take a break. If I'm in kindergarten, perhaps it's 20 minutes, and then I can take a physical break and do a Go Noodle. Go Noodle is a great resource for elementary students. It's a free YouTube channel with a lot of physical movement activities for students. And and they love it. They do it at school. Those are called brain breaks at school.
Brain breaks.
Getting outside is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And so just sometimes when you're home for so long, you kind of forget. I could just go outside. I could take a walk.
Right.
And also a lot of our specials in elementary school, as well as PE teachers, they've put out wonderful resources for getting breaks and getting some exercise during this time. And thinking about your own family, your own home, are there times where we could designate that we're going to turn off our screens? And that could mean television too. Do we need to watch TV? Do we have to play video games every single day? Or could that be something that we just do 3 days a week if all of our schoolwork is finished? So the more as families and parents, students as well, that we can think about, okay, how are we approaching each day, and what are the habits that we're building up for success? I think it really does help us. And of course, we can, as parents, model how we're processing our emotions and asking our students, our kids, how they're doing. And so simply saying, I'm feeling confused today. I'm not sure about my job. I noticed that you're frustrated with math. How could we help you understand this lesson? And just a last piece is taking advantage of this time that we have with remote learning, perhaps over lunch. Your son or daughter wants to prepare lunch. And that would be a great opportunity for them to practice their cooking skills. Also, take advantage of those breaks of, you know what, we need to vacuum, and here's a list of chores through the house. So healthy families really do matter for our students and their learning.
Yes, definitely. Those are great tips. And I think more than anything, just remembering to just be kind to ourselves. These are difficult times, and we're just kind of navigating as we're going, and we're pulling through. But so I think that's also very important, because it can be very frustrating for kiddos, especially if they are on site every day, and you have these 2 remote learning days, and it could be overwhelming and frustrating. So just being kind. If you're a student, be kind to yourself. Parents, also be kind to yourselves, because this is difficult and it is different. So we're all just kind of winging it and hoping everything turns out good.
And it's okay to ask for a break. Like, I need 5 minutes.
Right.
As a mom, as a dad, it's very healthy to model that for your students.
Definitely. Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing all these strategies, tips, and information. Parents, remember, remote learning, attendance is counted through the schoolwork that your kiddos turn in. You can contact the teachers. The teachers will be working. So if you're a student or you have any questions, need clarification, you can always reach out to your teachers. Thank you so much, Jamie.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. All right.